Village City Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. I welcome all who are attending our meeting here in the council chambers, viewing the broadcast on Known North, or the recording. The first thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite all participants who are able and would like to do so to stand and recite the pledge.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Where's my pencil?
Next, our agenda is the roll call, and tonight, please let the record show that Councilmembers Doolin, Jensen, El-Negdi, and myself, Mayor Webster, are present. Councilmember Randall is absent. Which brings us to item number 4 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Tonight's agenda includes the consent agenda, a public hearing on the 2027 budget calendar and budget calendar process, reports from commission and staff, general business of the council, reports from city manager and city council members, community forum, and information announcements. It is our belief that decisions are best made by informed decision makers, and that public decisions are best served when the public has every opportunity to present their views. Open discussion by all interested parties should be an essential part of the decision-making process. Tonight, members of the public are welcome to share their perspectives on agenda items listed during public hearing, reports from commission staff, and general business of the council. If you wish to speak, please complete a public input sheet, state your topic, and give to City Manager Younger or Assistant City Manager Morello. Later in our meeting, during the community forum, individuals may address the City Council about any city business item that is not included on the regular agenda. Council members, are there any questions on our agenda? No. Seeing none, is the council member willing to make a motion to approve our agenda? So the motion by Councilmember Doolin, a second by. What other? What input do we have? Going once.
And you said they would get it to Mr. Gallo, I believe. Can you get it to everyone? So post it publicly? That would be great.
Any other comments from public input? All right. If there's no more public input, City Council members, what questions, comments you have for Dr. Maloney? Dr. Maloney, I just want to start out, Dr. Maloney, one of the things that you outlined in the budget calendar, in the 2026 calendar of our city council meetings and work sessions, we will have 8 of those public meetings. We'll be talking about next year's budget.
Right.
And of those 8 meetings, 3 of them are public hearings, the first being tonight.
Right.
So thank you for outlining the multiple ways in which our community can respond to have a chance to provide input as we're developing the budget for 2027.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Councilmember Doolin.
Here. I just wanted to say I appreciate the transparency you have in the schedule. What you presented in the chart also ties
So
to the
she made sure that she didn't say anything.
So I appreciate having that. I think it gives us a clear understanding of what kind of information is going to be presented then, and when public input is going to be collected at different parts of the process. So I appreciate the clarity in that and understanding the process. One of the things I think I'll also say, just from our 2026 experience, I think it was a really good process that we had, the questions that were raised, and the concerns about the levy impact of the fire department. I think we had listening sessions to make sure we collected and understood people's perspective.
Their listening sessions are like the ones that you saw today.
Feels that there was a general awareness of the impact that was going to be there. So I think I feel good from a process that we followed last year, that I think people really had an opportunity to express their concerns, and I think
So
took that
I
into
want to
account
see if
in
they
our
go to
discussions around
individual
insurance
members who have
and
made
figure out
comments
how to bring that
after
balance
each
of
comment.
tax levy relief to city needs, right? So, like the process, I think it's really good. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Process is clear.
I also want to, comment that this whole presentation that you gave us is our plan as to how we're going to go forward and how we will put together all the numbers that go into a budget, costs and revenue and expenses.
Yeah.
And this is a starting point, and then there's many steps we got to go through. It takes a long time to get all the costs pulled together. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's not just copy and paste from last year, it'll be this year. So I think this is a really good plan. It's a good start for us. We're really hard.
42% police, 72%
The
HRA.
information was just an example of how it broke down last year, that it doesn't, this year's process will determine how the budget breaks down for this year.
It will be the actual stamp. Okay.
Right.
I have no questions. Thank you, Finance Director Maloney. This is, I think, a nice overview of what we're looking at for the year.
Thank you.
Any more discussion or questions from council? I will thank you, Director Maloney, and council members. I'll close the public hearing at 7:22 p.m. And council,
Move approval of the 2027 budget calendar and budget process.
Okay.
a motion by Councilmember Jensen, a second by Councilmember Enigdi. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion carries 4-0. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which is reports from commission and staff. And first item on our agenda is 2026 Planning Commission Work Plan. So at our city goal setting earlier in January, we spent some time really looking at and setting forth our goals that we wanted to work on as a city. And we have a planning commission and we have a Parks and Environmental Commission. So part of that process is really outlining how might our Parks and Environmental Commission and our Planning Commission continue to help us research and advance some of those goals that we have as a city. So tonight, City Manager Juncker, thank you for sharing an overview of the 2026 Planning Commission work plan.
All right, thank you, Mayor Council. So, as you mentioned, this is a plan that's put together. You've already reviewed it at goal setting, but this starts the process kind of the previous, November, December. Each commission works with staff to come up with a work plan for highlighting some particular priorities for the coming year for you to review to make sure that aligns with what you want to put out there at goal setting, and then just anything else that needs to be done, at the city. So for the planning commission, they're always looking at, zoning areas of the city, routinely. That often comes from the comp plan of things to work on over a 10-year period. Also, you have, affordable housing initiatives that you as a council have talked about as
For the
priorities.
elderly.
So they'll review. They mentioned monitoring data center development. We don't think that we're necessarily a real high value, location for that, but it doesn't mean there isn't something to be monitoring and be mindful of as that whole market kind of plays itself out. There may well be climate action plan goals that touch on the planning side of things, so they'll look at that. And then as the cannabis, hemp, THC, CBD, all that market kind of rolls out, there'll just kind of be a continuous thing of things coming up that from a land use standpoint, planning commission, should be looking at for your approval. And then lastly, I'll just mention the comprehensive plan preparation will start this year. And what is the city looking for out of that process? And that will be something that will be a joint discussion between the council and both commissions. So there's a brief overview of the planning commission work plan. So approval is a motion only. It's somewhat ceremonial, but it just kind of affirms what their focus will be for 2026.
Thank you. Council, what questions do you have about the Planning Commission 2026 work plan? Second time we've seen it.
Reflects what we talked about in goal setting.
All right. Seeing and Councilmember Nagdy, second by Councilmember Jensen. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Which brings us to item B, the 2026 Parks Environmental Commission Work Plan. So, Senator Younger.
Thank you, Mayor Council. So very similar process to get what you have in front of you here tonight, so I won't repeat all of that. But the highlights from their work plan for 2026 includes continuing through the action items on the climate plan that was adopted 2 or 3 years ago with focus on the water and waste items this year. And then the PEC loves to do a lot of work in the community, helping with outreach, helping with events, helping get things done around whether it's an organized group in town or a less organized group, kind of being that arm of all of that sustainability efforts here, from the city. So there's a number of those that you have in front of you.
So they accept less organized groups.
Talking to businesses about waste reduction efforts and trying to kind of gather some info on what things would be helpful for them, what would they be interested in. And each year, the parks looks over the capital improvement plan to see how the long range timing is for amenity replacement and rehabilitation over time. We started doing a park summit last year where we get kind of all the stakeholders and the usage of the parks together in a room to talk about how all of that is going and what kind of the current and future needs are. And then again, lastly, the comprehensive plan. There will be obviously an environmental and sustainability focus there, so they'll participate in that discussion as well.
Council, any questions on the Parks and Environmental Commission work plan for 2026? Seeing and hearing none, is the council member willing to make a motion to approve 2026 work plan?
Approval of the 2026 Parks and Environmental Commission.
Second. I just wanted to jump in. All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Doolin, second by Mayor Webster. Any discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda, which is general business of the council. The first item under is A, Resolution 26-019, affirming council stance on community safety, inclusion, and immigration. Council, in our packets, we have the resolution. And I thought we could take turns reading through it. So we can see
What a nice elementary school project.
All right, so I will begin and then we'll just take turns each reading a paragraph. And then after that, we'll have some discussion. Sure, we can do that. So this is a resolution affirming the council stance on community safety, inclusion, and immigration. Councilmember Julie, get us started.
Whereas the city of St. Anthony Village is a diverse and welcoming community whose residents include immigrants, refugees, longtime residents, workers, students, families, and business owners who contribute to the social, cultural, and economic life of the city. And
Whereas the City Council recognizes that the recent verifiable, visible increase in federal immigration enforcement practices have generated fear and anxiety in the community and have led to observable community impacts such as decreased school attendance, disruption of daily activities and work attendance, and heightened concern for the personal safety of individuals and families, including children, and
Whereas the city of St. Anthony Village recognizes that the United States federal government is responsible for enforcing federal civil immigration laws, but also affirms that public safety is best served through transparency, accountability, trust between residents and those exercising law enforcement authority, and
Whereas fear, uncertainty, and the perception of unchecked or unclear federal enforcement activity can undermine public safety, discourage cooperation with public safety and emergency responders, deter residents from accessing critical public services, and erode trust in government institutions. And
whereas the city has an obligation to safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of all residents, and to speak clearly when conditions arise that threaten community stability, even when our direct regulatory authority is limited.
now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of St. the City of St. Anthony Village, Minnesota, formally acknowledges the fear and disruption being experienced by residents because of increased federal immigration enforcement activity within the community and affirms its commitment to the safety and dignity of all who live and work in St. Anthony Village.
Urges federal immigration authorities operating within St. Anthony Village to conduct any enforcement activities in a manner that prioritizes transparency, clear identification, de-escalation, and minimizes unnecessary fear or disruption to the public.
We direct the mayor and city manager to communicate with Governor Tim Walz and appropriate state of Minnesota officials to request consideration of a temporary statewide moratorium on residential evictions for households that have experienced substantial financial hardship associated with the recent surge in federal immigration enforcement activity.
We affirm that city staff will continue to provide residents with public information regarding available community resources related to their rights and appropriate points of contact for public safety concerns in coordination with trusted local and state organizations where appropriate.
Affirms the St. Anthony Police Department will continue to uphold the philosophy of community-based policing and operate under SAPD Policy Manual Policy 413 and will not engage in federal immigration enforcement activities except as legally required.
Does not purport to regulate or restrict federal authority, but rather to formally communicate the city's position and the impacts being experienced locally, and affirms its commitment to the ethical treatment of all residents and visitors in the provision of city services and access to city services, regardless of immigration status or national origin.
So, any discussion on our resolution? Hearing no discussion, questions, or revisions. Take a motion to approve the resolution.
I move approval of resolution 26-019, a resolution affirming council stands on community safety, inclusion, and integration.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Neglia, second by Councilmember Jensen. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If there are individuals in the audience, it looks like we have one individual who had asked to share public comment on this issue. Dr. Newman.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Dr. Bibi, B-I-B-I Newman, N-E-U-M-A-N-N. I'm a St. Anthony Village resident. I want to address a statement made earlier that the most vulnerable residents do not want a separation ordinance because it increases risk to our community. If that is the case, I respectfully ask, what is the risk assessment that supports that conclusion? Was there a survey, confidential outreach, structured engagement with impacted families, legal, or safety modeling? Resolution 26-019 acknowledges, I quote, verifiable, visible increases, end quote, in enforcement activity and recognizes fear, disruption, and erosion of trust. That language reflects risk. If we are going to assert that vulnerable residents oppose codification or guardrails, that assertion should be supported by something more than anecdote. Risk governance requires evidence, it requires methodology, it requires clarity. Silence at public meetings is not a reliable proxy for preference, especially in an environment where fear has already been formally acknowledged. I'm not asking for agreement, I'm asking for intellectual consistency. If there is analysis showing codification would increase harm, please share it publicly, Mayor Webster. If there is not, we should be careful about presenting speculation as community consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals, Assistant City Manager Marilla, any other public input chiefs? Thank you. So we will move on to item B, resolution 26-020, authorizing use of funds to respond to impacts from federal immigration enforcement. due to Operation Surge, excuse me. And this was first discussed at our work session last Wednesday, in that we were continuing to find ways in which we can continue to support our residents who are directly impacted. And so in our packet was an outline of what that plan would look like. So I'll turn it over to City Manager Yanford to share some details.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Council. So as you mentioned, this is an item that came from your special work session last week, as you discussed various topics around the immigration enforcement that's happening here in the Twin Cities. That one led to the resolution that you just approved, as well as this item that came from that discussion in allocating some funds to assist folks that their car has been left behind as a result of an enforcement activity, and acknowledging the need that we would need to get that car out of the right of way or out of a driving lane. But you, as council, acknowledge that creates an additional hardship for the person that's being affected. What this resolution here really does is simply allocates $15,000 of general fund money that we could apply to a situation due to Operation Metro Surge, where a St. Anthony resident has their vehicle, left behind in this kind of situation. So we don't have a lot of hard criteria. We put this together very quickly, but I think our intention here is to put this in place. We allocate the funds. It's a somewhat defined timeline, and let's just see what happens. And we can always come back if the funds are running low, or if we're not seeing anything, what have you. But it allows us a tool, at least that we have at our disposal, and we'll address each situation as it comes.
Thank you. Questions for City Manager Younger? No questions. Council, I'm wondering if we do something similar on Resolution 26-020, if we want to go through and read it out loud as well, like we did before. So Resolution 26-020, I'll start with Councilor Julian on the left. A resolution authorize use of funds to respond to impacts from federal immigration enforcement during Operation Metro Surge.
Whereas the federal administration's Operation Metro Surge is resulting in adverse impacts to Minnesota communities, and
whereas members of the community are being targeted inhumanely due to the color of their skin or peaceful protest actions, and
Whereas areas in the state are reporting increases in abandoned vehicles in the right-of-way due to interactions with federal agents, and
Whereas the City of St. Anthony will commit and allocate funds related to vehicle towing and storage fees to city residents to minimize undue financial and logistical burdens to impacted individuals and families.
now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of City of St. Anthony Village, Minnesota approves the use of funds to subsidize towing and storage fees for residents targeted during Operation Metro Surge.
thank you. Do you have a motion to accept Resolution 26-020?
I move approval of Resolution 26-020.
second.
Motion by Councilmember Negde, second by Councilmember Jensen. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Council, that brings us to item C, under general business of the council, which is our active transportation plan. We welcome Sustainability Coordinator Minette Salag to the podium to discuss the active transportation plan. Ms. Salag first presented the plan at our work session last month. Thank you for joining us again.
We don't need to see the high school slides.
Thank you, Mayor Webster and council members. Yes, tonight we are revisiting our conversation from our January work session about the active transportation plan that the city has been developing, and tonight the request specifically is that council adopts this active transportation plan. So again, just an overview of the process that we've been going through over the last a little bit over a year. Back in January of 2025, the city was notified by MnDOT that we received an active transportation planning assistance grant. Throughout the rest of the year, staff held several meetings with the consultants that MnDOT provided for us. with our local planning team, and then a series of community engagement events and listening sessions and open houses in the fall. We developed this plan in November, December, and then as mentioned previously, you've seen this before at work session, that was the draft plan. Tonight we are bringing you a final draft with some revisions incorporated, and then just looking forward a little bit for spring and summer of this year, going into more initial discussions with external partners and planning for our demo project that we are still having discussions about. And then this, we also went over at our work session, but because they're really important reminders, I just wanted to bring forth again that MnDOT provides these active transportation grants and programs to make improvements to walking, biking, and rolling in various Minnesota communities. This grant is for planning assistance, and it is providing consultants to assist the city with the process of developing this plan. It was not a grant in which the city directly received any funds, monetary funding from MnDOT as the grant provider. So all of the proposed projects identified throughout the public engagement process, that was the biggest piece of that, was that we were able to get input from the community. And then this plan summarizes these opportunities, but it does not commit any funds or greenlight any of those projects at this time. So as we have been saying, it is a plan to plan and will be used as a central document in future conversations as we move forward. And then finally, the active transportation plan will be a document used to support our future applications for funding and to highlight priority areas of the city when we're working with our external partners such as MnDOT and the counties and park board cities. So especially when there are projects that are applicable to those that are included in the active transportation plan, it's really helpful to have that in this document. So the plan itself consists of several sections, and these are specifically tailored to the St. Anthony Village community. In our introduction, we share the guiding principles and summary of the planning process that helped shape this plan. In the vision and goals, which was developed with the city's local planning team, we share the central focus of what this plan hopes to achieve. We did do some research into existing conditions, plans and policies, and the other insights from this planning process that provides a picture of what our streets today look like. So this is, what we know about experiences that people have for walking and biking, taking public transportation, and rolling in the community as is. So as a result, we have identified several priority projects and recommended action steps from these rounds of community engagement, and also keeping overall city goals in mind. So looking forward for implementation, it does provide guidance for short and long-term steps that we can start working on, and frameworks for measuring progress and success between now and 2031 is kind of the latest date that we have in the plan, but also it stretches into beyond that as well. So the vision, as stated in the active transportation plan, is for the community to have a safe, connected, sustainable, and equitable active transportation network that promotes mode choice, improves quality of life, and environmental outcomes that serves people of all ages and abilities. So this planning process really helped shape what we've been calling the active transportation network, which you can see demonstrated on that map. These are the recommended kind of elements that help strengthen connections between different areas in the city, whether that's destinations, points of interest, and other gathering locations. So the three elements that are included in this recommended active transportation network are an off-road shared use path, an on-road separated bicycle lane, and an on-road bicycle boulevard, and that map demonstrates sort of where those different pieces can fit. Public input and technical analysis are the key informants to developing this recommended network. And then these recommendations were developed to connect bikeways in surrounding communities that already exist, such as ones that you can think of like Diagonal Trail or the Grand Rounds Trail. And also to key community destinations such as schools and shopping centers and places of worship. So several priority infrastructure projects were identified as well. This map shows the kind of the top priority infrastructure projects that came out of the planning for this process. And so specifically it highlights Stinson Boulevard and Silver Lake Road, as well as some intersections at 36th Avenue at Silver Lake Road, and also St. Anthony Boulevard where it meets Kenzie and Silver Lake Road, as well as County Road 88 New Brighton Boulevard there, that double intersection. And then this is a new map that we developed for this presentation, just to take it a step further in demonstrating on this map where all of the locations, the priority locations and corridors that are featured in this plan are relative to each other. Of course, these are places that city staff has heard about, you know, from feedback from residents over the years. I'm sure council has heard several comments about these places as well, but so it's really interesting to see and being able to really cement it that these are areas of priority concern for the community. So moving on, some key takeaways from the final draft and just the overall whole of this active transportation plan. We have plan actions that are divided into these 4 action categories that are listed out. So kind of just an overview of each as they are listed there. For project actions, these are like your high, medium, and low priority different infrastructure projects. For policy actions, at a very high level, these are like city principles that we can adopt, that we can use as we do our work. So namely what was mentioned in the plan is a complete streets policy, and then towards zero deaths policy programming. Program actions, these are more of the targeted, concentrated efforts. So what really came out that was important for the city and the community is that people can be connected to schools, hence the Safe Routes to School school effort coming up out of that, and then also making sure that people feel safe around getting around their neighborhoods. Within the neighborhoods, as we know, there's not as many sidewalks in the neighborhoods themselves, and so a neighborhood traffic calming program came out of that. And then finally, for practice actions, just using design guidance as we do all of our planning and review for projects. And really important to note, this is something that our city engineers and staff already do, but just continuing to keep an eye on things as they emerge. New best practices and methods, you know, come about as we move forward. That's something that's going to continue to be high priority as well, to continue to follow those guidelines. So next steps, moving into the spring and summer of this year, we are continuing to have discussions about planning and executing a temporary demonstration project. This is included in our planning assistance grant and is valued at between $10,000 to $15,000 is what MnDOT has budgeted to allocate towards our programming for this purpose. And so location on that to be determined, but that is coming up. And next step after that, or in the midst of all that too, is initiating conversations with our many partners. Hennepin and Ramsey counties are important partners to note, and then as well as other agency partners such as the school district and other groups as indicated in the plan. And then finally, ongoing monitoring for funding opportunities that come up that are applicable to projects listed in this plan. As I mentioned before, even though there are a lot of these projects like put sidewalks here, put bicycle lanes here, we are by no means ready to actually do any of these things, and so it's great to have them in one spot so that when the opportunity comes up to actually apply for funding or be able to actually implement those things tangibly, that we have this in our back pocket as leverage for those. So The request again for tonight is for city council to formally adopt the AT plan, but also we have time for questions if there's anything that anyone would like to discuss out of that, so.
Thank you, Ms. Solid. Council, what questions do we have for our sustainability coordinator, Solid? Councilmember Jensen.
More of a comment, but I like your emphasis on safe routes to schools, because I feel that if we can really improve the safety of kiddos walking to school, or riding their bikes to school, we'll solve a lot of our transportation needs for safety for everybody, not just, kiddos or students. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Nagdi.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you mind just giving us a brief explanation of what, I think many of us have heard of what 4-0 deaths is, but Complete Streets is something that's new to me. Neighborhood traffic calming program is also new to me. Could you just give me like a brief explanation?
Excellent question.
Would you like to take that? Assistant City Manager Morello, you're moving your microphone, so I don't know if that. I will start, and then, Ms. Solid, please feel free to add. So complete streets policy, this is typically a policy that a lot of agencies, including local governments, counties, they adopt. It's essentially principles, design principles that adhere to the different stratification of roadways. So appreciating that roadways in different contexts look different in each way, but how to make that what they call complete, essentially a network for people of all ages and abilities. And then in terms of the neighborhood traffic calming, essentially that would be a targeted look. Essentially think of it as taking a step further in safe routes to school, where we know that these are key routes. Safe routes to school, you're looking at key routes, that people are utilizing. A neighborhood traffic calming would be similar, and then thinking about some of those non-infrastructure type improvements to target those areas. Yeah, very well said. And the only thing that I would add to is that those two programs also speak to the fact that what active transportation planning tries to achieve is moving away from how a lot of the world is designed, where it's vehicle-centric, and being able to fully integrate, people, pedestrians, people who want to take their bikes around, or take scooters, or even skateboarding, rollerblading. If you have a wheelchair, having alternative modes of transportation that are still accessible and also safe.
Great, thank you so much.
Councilmember Dolan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Minette. I think this is really excellent work. I have been around and part of different efforts to try to raise awareness around safety and biking and walking. I mean, we started, I think back in 2015 with Bike Walk, talking about it. Citizens for Sustainability did some outreach at different Village Fest to kind of collect information.
So
And I know in our
she's
20
part of
comp
Citizens
plan,
for Sustainability, but the St.
Congress
Anthony New Brighton
members of
Welcoming All
Active Living
Families
came and gave
Association is
us
not
input,
good
and I think all of
enough
those were good steps.
because it
I think
has
this is a really
people
good
of color, women of
comprehensive
color,
look at the
that she
full
thinks that the only
situation of the
representatives.
city. And I appreciate that it included such a broad outreach in the community. I think it's really a much, it's a better, more robust document, I think, for us to go forward with planning on. So really appreciate the work. The other thing that I'll call out is that earlier this fall, we had an Active Living, I think they had their 25th anniversary. And one of the things they talked about there that was so critical is that we have these kind of planning documents in place, so that now as we move forward with street construction projects, it's no longer just about the cars and the movement of cars through our city. We're planning and designing with these plans in mind.
Ms. Solid, I just wanted to share, I think it was around December of 2024 when you and Assistant Manager Morello were finishing up the grant process to submit the grant, and to think about 14 months later that we have, through all of the feedback and input that was taken last year, like this active transportation network of to me is really exciting, because it continues to show what those pain points have been in our community, and how we will be ready for those grants and other opportunities to jump on, and how you opportunities. You talk about the off-road shared use path, the on-road separating bicycle lane, the on-road bicycle boulevard. So even specifying that those options may look different depending on what street that you're on. But again, that the goal is to increase the safety of walkability and bikeability in St. Anthony. So thank you for your work the past 14 months this warms my heart. So much. So, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Holly? Councilor Dillon.
I do have a question, Mayor. So can you just talk through kind of an expectation around what's the next step in the process? I imagine having this plan in place doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna take it up in our infrastructure plan this fall, right? It's just setting the stage for the next steps. Is that right?
Yep, correct. So, we've been in several conversations with city engineering, public works. As when this plan is adopted, we do foresee this kind of being not quite passed on fully, because I feel like we as a staff have all been very involved in this, and still there are like sustainability parts that I could still see myself being involved in and things like that. But you know, when they have their annual meetings with the counties, it's like a great opportunity to take this and reiterate some of these priorities. You know, it's really interesting just to, in our local planning team, we had representation from both Hennepin and Ramsey counties, and it's funny that, you know, like, oh yeah, like these conversations are so productive and they're so supportive, and then sometimes you might, you know, in those other planning conversations for actual street reconstruction projects, maybe it's different representatives that you're talking with. But the really important thing that came out of this project is that now we do have that, we have opened that door to have a more collaborative and productive opportunity to work towards like these projects that maybe haven't quite gotten as much momentum in the past. And so, yes, it will be a lot of kind of like ongoing conversations, and implementation for this will look a little different than, you know, how we might be implementing the climate plan or the energy action plan, where we were able to sort of, we were able to sort of like map it all out. This functions less so in that way, but it does, you know, have those sort of years as sort of benchmarks for, oh, like these are some steps that we can take in the short term and the medium term, and it might not ultimately be like, oh, this thing is complete by year 2029, but there are those intermediate things that we can do to work towards that. And so that's really what implementation will look like at a really high level for this plan.
That sounds very similar to like when the Safe Routes to School study was published. By having it published, the city then took steps to actually go look for federal grants for the sidewalks. So it's a vital first step to staging all of that.
Councilor Jensen.
One last question. As you were going through this pre-planning process to get us to this point right here, how many people were kind of involved with your group of, you know, the different sessions of how you came up with what you want to do, how you decided to prioritize?
Yeah, the local planning team, if my memory serves, it was about a dozen people, 12 to 15 people, I would say. We did have sort of we had some changes with like the school district, who was representing the school district, and also just it took a little while to figure out like, oh, do we include Ramsey County Public Works or the Ramsey County Active Living Coordinator? And so we actually ended up having both of them. So it was for the local planning team portion of that. Our city staff, both counties, the school district, several community representatives, and then with the engagement portion, we did some engagement with Hayden Grove Senior Living, with the senior high school and the middle school, at the liquor store at Silver Lake Village, and then we had an event here at the council chambers as well. And so I think through that process, we spoke with about 60 to 70 people in person, but then we also had well over 150 responses for the online like map and commenting portion of getting input. And so pretty wide, we really tried to capture as wide of a demographic as we could, different ages, different backgrounds, different abilities, meeting people where they're at to get a sense of like different experiences that people have in the city to get that input. So.
Thank you.
And then thank you for the presentation and again for your leadership on our active transportation plan. We do have one public comment from Casey. Casey would like to come to the podium, and you have 3 minutes to share your
Oh, she has 3
And I
minutes.
apologize that my phone's been going off. I set the timer for 3 minutes and then I forget about it.
It'll be all right. I don't think it'll be 3 minutes, but I would like to say that I'm speaking for myself and my partner who had the baby, but now he's with his aunt who's still looking for snuggles outside, so it takes a village. I'd like to start off by saying we moved from Brooklyn Center and coming here now and purchasing a house here, we pay a considerable amount of money in taxes, or what feels like that, right? And in looking at the map of everything, our road will become a bicycle boulevard. And I just need to say that, like, we are so excited. Cycling is healthier for us and for the planet, and with the bike lanes, it is safer and it encourages more physical activity from people. Most of our neighbors have bikes. Some of them, one of them has a bike, which my partner is infinitely jealous of. But on 31st, there's already about 8 to 12 children that play outside regularly, just on that, like, one block essentially, and I have seen cars zooming by. So we are very happy to see these sorts of active transportation that's being pushed. And we personally think that you shouldn't be penalized if you don't have a car, or if your seatbelts were cut as you were drug out of your car. And so thank you for prioritizing the right to transport yourself. And I know that this is not happening instantly, but getting the map out there allows, like, that seems to be a huge lift. So thank you guys, like, we're super excited about it. So,
And bring your cute baby anytime.
yeah.
Dr. Newman.
Yes, so, Mayor, council members, I couldn't help but hear how this planning committee was put together, and I heard something about community representatives. And so I have lived in St. Anthony since 2006. I did hear about the survey, and I did respond to the survey, and I'm happy to know that I'm counted as one of the 150 out of 9,800 people. But again, I mean, my doctorate is in psychology, I do have a master's, I did do research and submit dissertations. Math is not my forte, although my kids are excelling, but 9,800, 150 responses. Yeah, and that is my public comment, thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any other,
Hi, my name is Hawa Kamala, I live in St. Anthony. I had a question about safety for the kids on 31st and Silver Lake. What can be done? Can we put a crosswalk? Because I see a lot of kids crossing the street from on Silver Lake to come to the other side. So what can be done to on 31st and Silver Lake to make it more safer?
So it sounds like right now, well, some students may walk up the sidewalk on both sides of Silver Lake Road to get to 33rd and cross. What I hear you saying is you're observing students crossing Silver Lake Road at 31st to come to the east side of Silver Lake Road and use that sidewalk, probably to meet up with their friends to walk up the sidewalk to.
In the summertime, they go to the park on 29th and
Oh, got it, so they cross
see
there.
a lot of boys, yeah.
When they go talk about where they cross.
Thank you for making us aware of, like, from your observations of how students are crossing at Silver Lake Road, especially at the start and end of the school day. When there is more traffic on Silver Lake Road, it does cause.
And it's getting nicer when it's nice
Is
to
it
see a lot of
9,800
kids
residents?
walking or even biking and crossing with their bikes. And sometimes cars don't stop.
It's worse. Makes it worse.
No, thank you for speaking up on behalf of the safety of kids, because I think oftentimes we put in infrastructure like sidewalks. What we know about kids is if across the 2-lane road they see their friend, they're gonna cross so that they can walk to school with their friend or walk to the park with their friend. And so I think providing a helpful reminder of
3,000.
how we can continue to emphasize traffic safety and pedestrian safety too. Thank you. Is there any other public comment on the transportation plan? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to item D, the 2026 strategic plan. So as a reminder, Council, the 3 mornings we spent together in January working with city staff
Yeah, I was right.
on putting together our work plan and for 2026. City Manager Younger and Assistant Manager Merlo have outlined what those steps will look like and our focus areas will continue to be for 2026. So thank you, City Manager Younger and Assistant Manager Merlo.
Thank you, Mayor. I will get started with our conversation tonight. Thank you for outlining the activities that we've done. Like you said, we are here today to talk about and approve the 2026 strategic plan. So when we're talking about our strategic plan, we're essentially talking about 2 key deliverables. First and foremost, we have a brochure that is our strategic plan that outlines in more detail, and then the other deliverable that we provide is what we call our pyramid that you see on the right hand side of the screen, and that's what outlines our goals and specific action steps. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the team. Mayor Webster, as you noted, we do have a goal-setting event or retreat that we do each year. We had done this January 14th through 16th, and we bring together a collaborative group of diverse representatives, including City Council. We invite commission representatives, city staff, we have city, consultants, as well as regional guests. So it's certainly a time commitment, so we really appreciate the opportunity that we have together to talk through our strategic planning efforts. In terms of the process, we talk about it as goal setting, and we have that major event of goal setting, but essentially it's a year-long process. So whenever the council is doing engagement and outreach, you are hearing from the community of potential priorities and what's at the top of people's minds. And then certainly each individual department has priorities that they want council to be aware of. Our consultants bring forth their technical expertise to those conversations. And then we have our commissioners who represent the rest of their commission as well as the city as a whole. And then we also, really valuable resource that we do is we do bring other guests who represent regional agencies. And I will say that the guests that we had this year were really phenomenal and provided some really good regional context that shaped our conversation. And then so that's some of the efforts or some of the topics that we get discussed. And then from a strategical or from a logistical standpoint, certainly we have the annual goal setting itself. We then approve the strategic plan, which is what we're doing tonight. After this, what Charlie and I will do is we will essentially assign the action steps to specific staff. And then each quarter we provide quarterly updates to the city council. That way we provide those updates to make sure that we're making progress on those goals and action steps. And then, like we said, the outcome is our wonderful pyramid. And so we do have this pyramid that where the big takeaway is those specific actions for that year. But before we talk about the specific actions, I do want to just give an overview of what the pyramid entails. I think that's a helpful resource. So first, at the top of your pyramid, it outlines the vision. The vision is essentially the framework for what the city wants to do. Then we go into the mission, and that essentially describes what we do and for whom. Then we talk about our core values. Here at the city, our core values are trust, service, and inclusion. These are values that city council as well as staff embodies whenever we're doing our daily work. Then on our pyramid, we include city services. Essentially, these are routine roles and responsibilities that our departments are doing on a day-to-day basis.
And then on top of that, we have those additional goals and action steps. The goals are what we think of as aspirational outcomes that we want to meet. They're typically considered in 3 to 5 year timeframes, and then each year we review and update those action steps annually. Those are more targeted efforts that we want to accomplish within that year. And before we hand it off to Charlie, I just want to give context with our goals. We do have, on the pyramid itself, our goals are more high level in terms of environmental responsibility, thriving village, etc. But then, just so the public is aware, our council had done an exercise at a previous goal setting to essentially define these goals to give context. And so whenever, throughout meetings, throughout the year, whenever we are talking about items that pertain to these goals, this is essentially the context that helps drive those decisions. And with that, I'll pass it on to you.
Great, thanks Ashley, appreciate it. Getting down to what were really the takeaways from this year's exercise that we identified as priorities for the city this year. So starting off under environmental responsibility, under the financial policy area, there's a number of items in our climate plan that involve a financial subsidy. And so what our approach will be this year is to find a time to kind of consider those as a group, so council can really discuss them kind of a little more philosophically. You know, how do you want to approach financial subsidies as a city around sustainability and environmental responsibility versus doing it under, you know, each individual action, you know, repeatedly over and over again. And then broadly, really what, you know, kind of runs Manette's day, so to speak, is implementation of the plans that we have in place. Starting with the climate plan, 2026 focus area will be the waste and water, which will align nicely as each county is getting their plans rolled out for organics and curbside, as well as the renewal of our waste contract will be coming up soon. So the timing of that will work out well to facilitate all of that. We will continue the engagement around the Energy Action Plan, which you saw recently, and the biggest kind of takeaway from that plan is the outreach to the community, communicating what options are out there for folks, both residential and businesses. And then the Active Transportation Plan will kind of begin implementation. Manette just covered that in great detail, so I won't rehash that. And then under Thriving Village, there's a few housing policy items that have been mentioned by council over the year. One is consider accessory dwelling unit allowance in the city. Another one is a tax increment policy, sometimes called an affordable housing policy. You did get some samples of that, but topics took us other places in 2025, so something we'll circle back on to consider. And then another one that came up was studying tear down ordinances. Is that something we want to consider here to help maintain the character and affordability of our neighborhoods? And then along the vein is building connections in the community. A lot of this is really council actions of connect with your council around various locations in the community. Continuing your door knocking efforts. Continue leveraging regional and local partnerships, and then where the city organization relationships that can be leveraged as well to conduct outreach, gather information, and help inform your decisions. And then informed and engaged. So a big theme that came out of goal setting this year was continuing to improve and refine and enhance how we communicate the value. Again, it's just as a resident just mentioned, we're a high-tech city. We have a lot of services. We're quite small, so there's not a lot of economies of scale here. So we want to continue to keep communicating the value that we strive to deliver each day. So utilizing our channels to keep refining that message. And then again, kind of on the flip side of that is, all right, where are there kind of barriers to getting that information, understanding that information? So staff will be conducting a survey around communications and engagement, and to try to gather how do people want to be communicated with, what's most effective, what's least effective, what are people looking for, so that we can refine our approach to that. We'll continue with digital accessibility on all platforms. As we talked, it's a for a requirement, but something that's been working up to for a number of years, and Bart spent a lot of time on that this year to be ready for that compliance. But it isn't even just compliance; it's going over and above and making sure that everyone can access the information we have out there. And then we put comprehensive plan under informed and engaged here because in 2026 we want to select the consultant we would like to work with to help facilitate that comp plan process. And the key part of that is what kind of community engagement effort would you like to see around that comp plan part? As we mentioned at the work session, from a technical standpoint, staff can handle the comp plan, but the other side of it is the community engagement side, which is the critical piece of it. So who would you like to have help us with that? Safe and secure community. Another theme of goal setting was building trust. In this environment we're at now, the local level government wants to be that trusted source. So how can we, showcase existing services, but still help spread awareness of other resources that are out there, higher levels of government, nonprofits, what have you, and then also just highlight, what's available from city partners as well. And then under community connections, we want to just, along that, kind of demonstrating value theme for the previous slide, try to just feature all the departments. I think some city functions just tend to get more attention than others just by the nature of what they do. But there's a lot that happens, so we want to try to highlight everybody. We also are looking at implementing community gathering spaces, partly here in the community center. This central area hasn't been utilized to its full potential in recent years, as well as trying to integrate it into our municipal stores and try to leverage those locations that way. And then finally, under fiscal and organizational strength, infrastructure planning. We've been talking about this for a while. The public safety facility or police department renovations, fire department renovations, so that they can adapt to what their current and future needs are. But we'll still kind of keep working on the public safety facility to see if that's going to be financially feasible or not. As you know, we'll need considerable outside help to even approach that sort of thing, but we'll keep working on that. Water treatment plant assessment and automation. So this is something that is carried over from the previous year to keep trying to modernize the plant, take out manual processes, and just make sure that that piece of infrastructure is in good shape for decades to come. And then lastly, along the similar vein of the police and fire, is assessing what are the current and future needs of the community center. What is this building intended to provide, and how well are we aligned with that, and what do we need to do to change? And then finally, under tax levy relief, you can consider franchise fees on utilities, gas and electric. It's something that previous iteration of city council a number of years ago looked at, chose not to do. You can revisit that, and then and just really the last number of months has been solidified that cities are able to establish franchise fees on fiber. So adding it to the broadband, kind of pool of franchise fees, which is already there for cable, could be a tool to help, fund things. I would say this one is a little less about tax levy relief and more about maintaining 9 North and its financial viability, and to be able to offer that. But it is, again, something out there that's an option for you to explore. So the strategic plan itself, which, really both things are on the website. The pyramid, which has kind of traditionally been just this one-page kind of snapshot document, as well as the strategic plan or goal-setting document, which has taken different forms over the year. But a few years ago, we tried to get it a little more digestible for folks and change to a more brochure format that's much more focused on the information, rather than trying to read a 12, 15-page document isn't really conducive. So those can be found on the website. So really for here, tonight is just reaffirming, does this represent what you feel was the takeaway from goal setting, good with the action steps, and then a motion to formally plan. But with that, happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Younger, council, what questions do you have for City Manager Younger, Assistant Manager Mel?
We like colors, not a lot of words.
Councilor
Just
Jensen.
colors.
This isn't a question, because we spent 9 hours on this, 3 hours on Wednesday, 3 hours on Thursday, and 3 hours on Friday from 9 to noon.
And they came up with no
In
action
the same room,
steps.
so there could have been as many visitors that wanted to be here, they had nothing else to do, it would be unfilled. One thing I really appreciated though was the fact that we have a good definition for all of our goals, because we didn't have that in the past, so that's a new thing. thing is the participation level between our guests and our, and your, leaders, as well as their second, in command, so to speak, all participated, nobody just sat there. Plus, the action steps that came out, have strong overlap as to what the current staff is doing, so that's, it's not like, okay, you have to make sure the city is running okay, water mains are fixed right away, fires are put out, someone that has a heart attack, emergency response is there like right away. But, and this is not just an extra list of things that they have to go do besides, so that's the thing that I like about this, is that overlapping integration between action steps and what we describe as a strategic action step, which may not get all done this year, but it's a direction that we go down and can help us refocus on in maybe expanding that direction. Sometimes when you go down a direction, then you come up with some new information where, hey, maybe we should, diverge and go this way. So that's
And
what I
said
see.
you got
that we
this,
have
so we might hear some bullshit action steps that may not be integrated.
And I just appreciate it
Maybe
that we
planting
have
more
this
trees.
cooperation and, people that came here wanting to contribute, which was nice. Thank you.
Like Councilmember Jensen said, we did spend quite a significant amount of time on this. I do not have any questions. I am excited to get started.
Councilmember Jensen, Julian. One thing I was thinking about, and this is just how my brain operates, because at the work session, we were talking about our list.
Yeah, I just came up with it for 30 seconds.
And so I was looking at, how might they align, and, now I'm thinking about how might we have an additional priority because it is in alignment with our goals. So, anyway, this was very helpful.
She said nothing.
Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Jensen's statement. It was really great to have your guests here, because I think they really, when they talked about our process, they also talked about the opportunities and threats that are happening in their city and in region. And I think it really helped us be more reflective and forward thinking. So I appreciate the outside contribution to the process. I also think it's really great to see and hear 4 of the 5 goal areas have specifically speak to community engagement. I think that is something I am proud of, because I think we have made good improvements since I joined the council. Just really great to see. Thank you.
Also, seeing and hearing no other questions for City Manager Younger and Assistant Manager Morello. Is the council member willing to make a motion to approve our 2026 strategic plan?
I move approval of our 2026 strategic plan.
One second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Elnegdi, second by Councilmember Jensen. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Council, I'm wondering, I know we have reports from City Manager and council members next. We may have some individuals in the audience who are interested in community forum. To perhaps allow them to be able to go home a little sooner. Are we okay if we move community forum? Okay. We're gonna skip over 10 and move to 11, community forum. And so, at this time, individuals may address the city council about any city business item not included on the regular agenda. Speakers are requested to come to the podium, state their name for the record, and limit their remarks to 3 minutes. The purpose of community forum is to listen to community members regarding any city business item and for council members to hear and understand multiple perspectives. As mayor, I reserve the right to limit off-topic discussion. Our goal is to ensure an environment which emphasizes respect and civility. We expect our community members to commit to this goal too. Generally, the city council will not take official action on items discussed at this time, but may refer the matter to staff for a future report or direct that the matter be scheduled on an upcoming agenda. Does anyone in the audience have an item they would like to bring forth and share with the city council tonight?
What happened to resolution 26-018?
It was in the consent agenda.
So there was no comment open to the public on that?
Right.
Okay. That's not surprising because it involves going into people's houses, but, all right. So, I'm gonna speak on agenda item 6D, 9A, and 9B. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Dr. Bibi Newman, St. Anthony Village resident. I'm speaking to agenda item 6D, resolution 26-018, and agenda items 9A and 9B, resolutions 26-019 and 26-020. Resolution 26-019 acknowledges verifiable visible increases in immigration enforcement and recognizes fear and erosion of trust. If fear exists, policy must reflect that reality. With respect to Resolution 26-020, I support mitigating harm, but compassion without guardrails undermines trust. Clear eligibility criteria for that $15,000 that was allocated, public reporting, defined measures of equity, those are not optional, they are governance. The same trust standard applies to Resolution 26-018. The private property inflow and infiltration grant requires entry into residents' homes. Interior access should not be a default requirement. The 2016 meter replacement already failed. Repeating that model is design choice. In this climate, residents who feel vulnerable will opt out. If participation is low, that does not improve success. It proves people do not feel safe. Infrastructure policy is trust policy. If we're serious about being a safe and secure community and an informed and engaged community, our infrastructure decisions must reflect that alignment. As to the increase in public engagement, I have personally contacted individuals of the community, members of the community, to show up tonight, because Mayor Webster, you did say earlier at the listening session that I only speak for myself. This is why you are not taking up a separation ordinance. So I am glad that they showed up, and I plan on bringing more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Swantek. I am a resident of St. Anthony. I first want to thank the council for the resolution on the authorizations of funds tonight. I think that is a good first step. From there, though, we are still seeking three things. First, codifying the police policy 413 that already exists regarding assisting immigration enforcement. Second, limiting the use of city parking lots in a neutral way that was approved as discussed at the February 4th work session. And third, approving staff to partner with neighboring cities in the current emergency climate. These are the bare minimum. There are two glaring absences tonight, both the police chief and Councilmember Randall. For the second straight meeting, Councilmember Randall has repeatedly stated is not here. And he has repeatedly stated that he does not believe what is happening. He does not believe what constituents are emailing him, and that we are simply working ourselves into a hysteria. Here's what I have seen. I've seen immigration enforcement on our streets. I've seen people pulled out of broken windows. I've seen tear gas and flashbangs. I've seen immigration agents invading my work, community members too afraid to leave their homes for work, medical appointments, and other appointments. ICE agents showing up outside of the house of a community member who spoke up in this chamber, who is now unwilling to speak out publicly. I put up new camera surveillance systems and dash cams, not to protect me from the public, but from our own government. ICE agents surrounding school bus pickups, and ICE agents attempting and successfully ramming vehicles of lawful constitutional observers. If Councilmember Randall is only willing to hide his head in the sand and deliberately ignore what is happening, even while his own employees are too afraid to come to work, while also explicitly saying he doesn't believe his constituents, then he should resign his seat immediately.
Period.
I also heard that the only thing the police can do is show up and speak to residents. The police chief acted like they're unable to speak to agents from the federal government and to ask them to leave our property, to inform them that they are legally on city property, and to ask for a judicial warrant.
Shame.
No one is asking our officers to fire on federal agents. Why would I call 911 if I'm being illegally detained by ICE, or they are illegally breaking down the door of a neighbor, if our police all they'll do is stand there and watch? We've seen how police have used de-escalation and communication to protect legal observers in other cities. They have Kevlar and guns, all we have is whistles and cell phones. I've also heard that St. Anthony Village is too small for these ordinances and the budget isn't big enough to fight the federal government like Minneapolis or St. Paul or Mankato. If St. Anthony Village is too small to protect its residents, then it should dissolve and be incorporated into Minneapolis, who are at least doing the bare minimum.
Shame.
This is not a time for cowardice. 2 months ago, we never imagined we'd be under federal occupation, and we don't know what's next. The city cannot continue to be reactive, it must be proactive. The federal administration has already said they will use ICE at polling locations and has demanded Minnesota voter rolls. There are 30,000 crowd suppressant munitions currently being held on federal property. What will it take for the council to act? Please, we're begging you for your courage in this time of community need. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Casey again. So I'd like to say that if Councilmember Randall is saying that he doesn't believe those things, I find it appalling and quite frankly shameful.
Yes.
You cannot look outside and see vehicles where the seatbelts are cut and think that nothing is happening. I find it embarrassing, quite frankly, if that's actually what's happening. So on top of that, we have been consistently, my partner and I have been consistently going to Whipple to protest. We have been pepper sprayed. We have been dealing with more than what we should ever have to as a citizen of the United States. I'm Native American, you might be able to tell by the blanket, but they are taking natives as well, right? It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. It only matters if you're speaking up and you're saying something that they don't like. I am very happy to see that we are beginning with the policy of trying to help people with the vehicles and help them cover those costs. It's so important for people. I'd like to see us continue that. And I'd like to also say that I really liked the flexibility that you have in there of, this is what we put together, we tried to do it as quick as we can. I know that for somewhere like St. Anthony, to turn around in like even a week is incredibly fast. So thank you guys. It matters. It matters to all those people who it's happening to. And while I don't have as many educated words about it, I think everything that both of these guys have said are seconded by myself. So, have a nice day.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at committee forum? Seeing and hearing no additional response to the committee forum, we will move back to item number 10 on our agenda, reports from city manager and council members. And today we're going to start from the right, and we'll stay to the right. So we'll start with city manager Young, and then we'll move to Councilmember Mink.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have no report to offer tonight. I believe anything I would have, the council will cover, so I'll defer to council.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one report earlier this week, Tuesday, so Monday, yesterday. Councilor Doolin and I participated in a Connect with the Council event at Beacon Grove. We spent about an hour and a half chatting with residents, keeping them, apprising them of our successes from 2025 and our goals for 2026.
Thank you for doing that. Those are important and it's helpful when we compare.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor. On January 29th, I attended a Zoom meeting on the majority in the middle listening session to what other cities are doing in reaction to ICE initiatives. And on the 30th of January, I attended the Wayne County Local League of Governments Town Hall with Betty McCollum's staff that is providing advice what cities are doing or can't do related to this ICE surge. And then on the 27th, and January 27th and February 3rd, I attended listening sessions as well as tonight.
what you can. Yeah, thank you.